This is episode 37 of the Gauntlet podcast. My name is Jason.
And I'm Rich.
My name is Steve.
I'm Kristen.
And I'm Dan.
Awesome. You guys handled that very well, considering we didn't go over the order beforehand like we normally do.
I'm proud of us.
We're pros.
Good improv skills, guys. Hey, this is our end of year. I'm calling it Celebration 2015 because I like that, but it might be kind of cheesy. We're going to talk about our favorite games of the year while also reflecting a little bit about just, things that have been going on in 2015 for the Gauntlet. At the outset, I'm super excited that we're here right now because you guys may or may not remember, but we started the podcast about 1 year ago. Is that right, Dan? Somewhere around there.
That seems about right.
I think it's about 1 year. I think we're maybe not right on the 1 year anniversary, but pretty close. And so I think there was a huge chance that we wouldn't have made it this far, and we wouldn't have gotten 44 episodes under our belt. It is 44 episodes if you include the non-numbered episodes. So I think that's awesome. And so congratulations to us. Congratulations to you guys. I'm pretty excited that we are here. And that makes me think that we're going to be here for a while. So that's good. So strap in for the next 10 years, you guys, because we're going to be doing this. We're going to be doing this in 2025.
I feel like I should have gotten you guys a cake. It's a 1-year-old. 1-year-olds get their first cake on their first birthday.
I would have liked a cake. Yeah, that would have been great.
It would have been awkward when you had to cut it in half and mail half of it to New Jersey.
True.
Though.
Well, no, I just eat Jason's cake and show it to him while I ate it.
Okay.
Just show me on camera.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, cool. Here's how this is going to go, guys. We're going to talk about our favorite games of the year. So I asked the community to give me some feedback a few weeks ago about which game community members thought was the best game that they enjoyed that year, or their favorite game, so to speak, of the year. The criteria for their choosing the game was basically that it had to be an RPG text. It didn't have to be a game released in 2015. It didn't even have to be a game they played. They could use whatever criteria they wished to name it their favorite game of the year. And so that's what they did. We got lots of feedback. We're going to go over some of that today. And then gradually, the five of us will be revealing our picks for our favorite game of 2015. And, we've had a lot of guest co-hosts on the show over the course of the last year, but I think Kristen and Steve, you guys are our regular co-hosts. I think you've earned regular guest co-host status. So we're going to include you guys here. And then of course, obviously Rich, Dan, and myself. So one of the things I've been really excited about this year is the fact that we have been able to kind of spread our wings a little bit and get people kind of playing games under the Gauntlet banner, who are not in Houston, because we started in Houston, but ever since the podcast started, we've started to kind of expand a little bit. And I'm personally really excited about Gauntlet UK. Issa and Edwin over at Gauntlet UK, they have they've started to get a bunch of things up on the calendar for December and January. I think it's going to be even bigger as we get going. And so I thought we would start by talking about what Edwin and Issa liked as their favorite game of 2015. Edwin, he actually chose a module for Dungeon Crawl Classics called the Chained Coffin, and he says, I'm going to say that Michael Curtis's Chained Coffin, which is part of the Shutter Mountains campaign setting for DCC, is blummin' great. Now, blummin', I think, means blooming. I could be wrong. But you've been watching Great British Bake Off, Dan. Is blummin'? Does that sound right?
I don't know. The only experience I have with bloomin' is the bloomin' onions at Outback, and that's Australian. That's authentic Australian, not
right, indeed,
not English. So I don't know.
I like how, Jason, even operating under the assumption that it's bloomin', you included the G at the end there. This is a blooming great game, you guys.
Well, this is a blummin' great module, apparently. He says, the reason for this choice is that it uses a less well-known Appendix N author, Manly Wade Wellman, as its inspiration. I'm not familiar with Manly Wade Wellman. I guess that's why it's one of the lesser known ones. Summoning images of simple Appalachian mountain folk and double-dealing devils, witches, conjuring men. Honorable mention, he says, goes to Cyrun because it was the game that clicked for him. It was the first game that his group of people who'd never role-played before that they kind of clicked with. And so that's awesome. I love Cyrun too. That's a great one. Dungeon Crawl Classics. I know you guys don't play it. I don't play it either, but I do convert a lot of the modules. In fact, I'm converting one first thing in January. We're going to play a converted DCC module in Dungeon World called the Croaking Fane. So I'm kind kind of get behind that as a module as our first pick here for the evening. And then Issa from Gauntlet UK, he chose Misspent Youth. Now he's one of those guys who didn't play his game. That's okay. He says, so he hasn't played it yet, but I started reading it at IndieCon UK. The intro read, "Welcome to Misspent Youth. This is a fucking awesome game. You're going to have fun with it. So much fun, you'll wonder why it's not illegal." He says, "Need I say more? What an intro. I love this fucking game and I've yet to play it. This is hands down my favorite of 2015. Well, there we go. It's a good game. I'll tell you, Issa, it's an awesome game. Dan, it's one of Dan's favorites, right?
It is, yeah. If we had played it this year, that might have been my favorite game of the year.
Wow.
Oh, well, I guess man, it's too bad we played this. Yeah, because we played it last year. If we
did,
had a
yeah.
podcast
If we had done
last year,
this
we
show
could have named it
last
last year.
It may have been it.
It might have been. It's an awesome game. Well, another great thing about the Gauntlet, speaking of like our diaspora, as it were, is the original Gauntlet Houston. I've grouped up all of our Gauntlet Houston members who submitted their favorite games together. Farrell, our friend, he chose 10 Candles. He says, 10 Candles, I think, is my favorite for the year. Not only did the mechanics of having the only light source be the candles themselves create an excellent atmosphere, but the audio log sealed the deal by creating a weird feeling that stayed with you after the game was over. The only thing I can compare it to is the Society of Dreamers game we played last year with only candlelight. And then he adds the caveat of, maybe I just like candles. That could be it. I don't know. I haven't had a chance to play that one yet, though. I really want to. I'm super jealous that you guys did. So
I really liked 10 Candles. I think I've never played Society of Dreamers, actually. Somehow that one keeps getting past me and I really want to. But I think that 10 Candles and also Public Access are two of the only games I've ever played that manage to actually make you feel creeped out. Dan's wife pulled up in the garage while we were playing 10 Candles, and I think I jumped or
Yeah, the dog started barking.
Yeah, and I was so into it that I actually jumped and I think I made a little scream or something.
You did. You definitely did, yeah.
Because, we were so into it in the dark and the mood and the setting, and it's rare to get a game that delivers on the creep or the weird factor, that uncomfortableness, especially when you play with the same people all the time. And I thought 10 Candles really did it.
You're right. It's really easy to spoil the tension of a game when you're playing with a group that you're really familiar with, right? Because Dan and I experience this when we do Society of Dreamers, and Steve too. There's that first pass around the table where you want to just do your normal, jokey stuff, Yeah. And you can't do that, right? No. It super ruins it. So it can be hard. Thank you for mentioning Public Access, by the way. That's very nice of you. I'm so flattered. That's my game, listeners. So I've never really talked about it on the podcast, but
it's fantastic. I can't wait to play it again.
Well, thank you. It's a thing. It's not done yet, but yeah, thanks. Awesome. Well, let's keep going. Fowler, our friend Fowler, says he chose Dungeon World. I think he's the only person who chose Dungeon World, even though it's the game that probably gets played the most in the Gauntlet. He says, it won't surprise anyone that my favorite RPG this year is Dungeon World. I've played a lot of DW and I've run a few games. DW is fast and easy to get started and consistently allows me to play exactly how I want to play. I feel the same way about that. Most of the time when I have been playing other traditional style fantasy RPGs, I've been quietly lamenting every overcomplication, limitation, and the OSR style correct answer, which he puts in quotes. I have a problem with that too. I've discovered lately that that's a thing in the OSR, that correct solution to the dungeon that can be really frustrating if you're not ready for it. I think once you get in that headspace, it's not so bad, but initially that can be really hard when the GM has an answer in mind and you're just kind of fumbling around trying to find it. Dungeon World dispenses with all that for reasons we've talked about a million times before. Shall we keep going again?
Yeah.
So David chose Chuck Eat Cheese. That's one of my games. He says it was hands down the funniest game session he's played, or that he thinks he's been a part of. He says while Dog Eat Dog, which is what it's based off of, is a more serious game about colonialism in the Pacific Islands, Chuck Eat Cheese is a game about corporate takeover of a local pizza fun palace. The hack really demonstrated how you can take and use mechanics to enforce entirely different kinds of atmosphere. That game session was one for the ages, a perfect example of the ephemeral nature of face-to-face games. I don't know what he means by that. What does he mean by that, Dan?
I'm not sure. I guess just that it was a really good game, and if you weren't there for it, then too bad.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Well, that was very flattering. Thank you, David, for picking Chuck Eat Cheese. I'm actually polishing that one up and commissioning art and layout for it to kind of give it a more official-ish sort of release. So,
oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And we're playing it in January.
We are indeed. Yeah. The last Sunday in January, we're going to be doing another play test of it. I've got some revisions that I want to try out and see how they go, based off the first time we play tested it. I've made some changes. So.
On Gauntlet Hangouts or
Yes.
Gauntlet Live?
Story Game Sunday.
Yeah, on Hangouts. Yeah. And then finally, our friend Russ, he chose for his favorite game of the year, The Clay That Woke. He mentioned having a hard time picking between several games, but he says, I ultimately decided on The Clay That Woke, even though I haven't played it yet. The book is great with beautiful art and stories. The original setting is evocative and mysterious, and it stays with you. The tokens and Crater of Lot's oracle system seems challenging to use, but also looks to inspire the story in cool ways, and so I expect them to be rewarding to master. He says also the GM advice at the end about using real-world issues at a personal scale to create themes for the game and how to implement them in the PC's lives is great to add to your GM's toolbox. I agree 100%. I don't have anything to add to that except to say that The Clay That Woke was a lot of people's second choice. A lot of people were really into The Clay That Woke, but for most players, they hadn't actually played it. It was just their appreciation of the text. And I've played it a few times, but I think I'm also kind of in that camp of like, I love this game so much. It was one of my very favorites this year. But I love it kind of for what it and how it inspired me, like the way it inspired me to think about fantasy, the way it inspired me to think about incorporating weird elements into the game. And also, like Russ said, that style of GM prep where you focus on a real world social problem, but make it a personal scale thing. I loved all that. It was really, really great. The game itself is rather difficult. And so I don't know if it probably wouldn't get my favorite game of the year just for that reason, because it was hard to get to the table. There's a lot of like barriers to entry, but as far as being an inspirational text, I really, really loved it. Have any of you guys checked that one out yet?
I played Clay That Woke with you actually, Jason.
That's right. Yeah, I remember that now, Kristen. What about you, Steve?
No, I haven't.
It's great. People should check it out. It's just really evocative. Like I had a real issue with it in the beginning because it's not laid out in a way that makes it easy to run. Like all the rules are kind of scattered throughout the book, and the conflict resolution is really, it's a little obtuse, and it takes a lot of like mastery, I guess is the right word. But as a text, it's really, really, really tremendous. I think that's why so many people love it, because it's just such a beautiful, beautiful text. So,
a question.
Yeah.
What does degringolade mean? Because I saw that word somewhere else recently, and I had assumed he'd made it up, but
I thought so too.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't know the answer to that question. I know in the game it's the name of the city that it takes place in, but I don't know what that word degringolade means.
I don't think
idea.
I'm crazy. It's just it's
just
got
a
gringo
mystery.
right there in the middle of it, and I thought that was just like that was a word that seeped into Paul Sega's unconscious or something, and he put it in the crazy name of a city.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Yeah, it might be worth asking him or find. I don't know. I have no idea.
This just in. Degringolade means a rapid decline or deterioration, as in strength, position, or condition. Popularity, bottom 20% of words. No kidding, Merriam-Webster.
I actually got to play with Indie Plus. We did a demo of the game and Paul Sega ran it. It is a challenging game. I got really lost early on, and Jen, who was playing with us, also was lost. So I messaged her and I said, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to do the best Michael Dorn impression I can. And then I got some compliments on the YouTube video. So I love this game.
Nice.
It's not an easy game. I mean, it's not. It demands a lot of the player, and I think I'm not sure that's. I don't know. I don't know if it's fair. I go back and forth on this game, to be honest. I sometimes I think, yeah, this is good. We should be creatively challenged. We should be challenged as players to think super critically about the world and to be forced to kind of like mind meld with Paul to get into his headspace, right? But then sometimes I think this is not conducive to getting into the table easily, right? Like there's just it's a back and forth, But Kristen, you played it. What did you think of it?
I liked the creative challenge. I really liked the restriction of emotion involved, in that, you couldn't let yourself do the things you wanted to do, and you couldn't let yourself explode in the way you wanted to explode, and you had to actively think about that. I really liked that challenge. I do wish that there was maybe a version that was, this is going to sound bad, but less of a time commitment, because we played 2 or 3 sessions. I can't remember which. I think it was 3. And we didn't even come close to getting into the complexity and the advancement systems and the various things you can do with the Oracle. And I wish that there was a way that, that you could fast track a little bit of that so that you can experience it and get hooked. Because it seems like it's got a very long wait for the payoff on that end.
That's a super good insight. I think that's part of the reason that apart from the fact that it requires like a specialized tool to play, and if you don't have that tool, you can't play the game, being the little tokens that you can get with it. Another thing that makes it difficult to get to the table is it's not really one-shottable, right? No. Like you play one shot of that game and, you know, per the way you're supposed to play it, and you're not going to get the full experience, right? In fact, and Paul's really open about that. He expects you to play it for like campaign length, like for real campaign length, you know, like, you know, 20 sessions or whatever. So that makes it a bit of a challenge, especially just kind of like in our sort of modern way of playing role-playing games, you know? Like I think more and more like people are ditching that like long-term campaign way of a style of play, you know, and going for more like short-term games.
Certainly in the Gauntlet.
Yes.
Yeah, well, and when I think of Powered by the Apocalypse is that it has really kind of pushed a certain part of the hobby in that direction, because those games are usually good for about 6 sessions, right? Or at least 6 sessions before you finish a major story arc, you know?
Yeah.
So Clay That Woke definitely kind of sticks out in that way. It's a challenging game in so many ways, but nevertheless, like it's a one-of-a-kind text. I mean, it's just super. Kristen, I know you didn't read it yet, so you didn't get that end of it, but
Yep.
It's really something else. Like it's really, really like special in that regard. Well, why don't we go ahead and I think this is a good time to do one of our co-host picks. And Kristen, would you like to start? We're going to give you a drum roll.
Ooh, yay. Drum roll sound good.
Someone drum roll. I'll drum roll.
I'll put it in post.
All right, go. Okay, good.
I get a real drum?
I'll just do a drum roll. Yeah. All right. So Kristen, what is your favorite game of 2015?
Okay, so this one was very difficult, and I'm not going to cheat. I always cheat. I'm not going to cheat. I have one pick, and that's actually not a game system itself, at least not the way we played it, but a setting, and that was a Red and Pleasant Land. And we used Dungeon World character sheets, I believe, it was Dungeon World character sheets, right?
Yeah, we did it in Dungeon World.
Yeah.
I basically converted it for Dungeon World. Yeah.
And so the reason that I chose A Red and Pleasant Land is that for me, when it comes to choosing a best game, even though talking about mechanics can be interesting and talking about the intent of games or perhaps the moral campaigning of games or all the different things that RPGs have going for them, at the end of the day, the thing that makes the best game for me is all about the experience. It's about what happened at the table. And A Red and Pleasant Land delivered every week. Even on the first week when we didn't know what the hell was happening.
The first one was so hard.
It
Yeah,
was
the first
so
one was
hard and so frustrating. But every week it delivered. And throughout that campaign and in that setting, some of my favorite characters that I've interacted with all year were in that setting. The fishmen, who Scott and I still imitate, at like various moments we'll go, oh, yes. And, you know, the Hatter and all of these people and the way of thinking. If you haven't read the Red and Pleasant Land book yet, first of all, I got to peek at it, and it's just a cool book in and of itself.
It's so beautiful. Yeah, it's gorgeous.
But I found myself reminding somebody at the table, they were like, well, how do we get back to X spot? And I was like, well, you have to walk backwards 10 paces, then hop around in this direction, then crawl through a window. The window won't be there, but if you think it's there, it will become there. Then ask the griffin such and such a question, and then leap over the river, and then you'll be there. And just having that conversation was so much, it's so
Right,
much fun. Yeah. The ridiculousness of it and just the cheeky charm was the reason I had to pick it for my favorite game this year.
Awesome. Yeah, it was really special. I converted it for Dungeon World. I think it's meant to be played with Lamentations of the Flame Princess or other like OSR or first edition D&D type systems. It converts easily enough to Dungeon World though. It's no big deal. The book is beautiful. The actual, like, it's just a really, really high production quality book. The art is fantastic. It's by Zach Smith. We haven't mentioned that yet. It's really phenomenal. It's just a setting. It's just a bunch of like setting elements essentially, but the way he uses art to convey like the mood and the tone of the setting, it's such a tremendous work, and you can't help but like immediately get into that space. You know, as you're flipping through it, your mind just starts to race with like creative inspiration, you know, and I was able to take those elements and kind of translate them into Dungeon World in a way that was fun for the players and apparently memorable, which is good. I like to hear that. And yeah, it was awesome. Anybody else familiar with that one? Red and Pleasant Land?
Nope.
Okay. Just you and me, Kristen. We're here on this. We're on our wavelength just together, you and me.
What was you said the first session was especially difficult. What was off about that one?
It was mostly the thought process, that everything that you wanted to do had a very systematic but completely illogical way of making it happen.
Yeah, okay.
And it just took a lot of getting used to, in that, like, if you wanted to go do a certain thing, you couldn't do it the direct way you had wanted to do it. You had to do it backwards and sideways and diagonally and upside down, and then ask the fisherman about it, and eventually you'd get to do the thing you wanted to do. And the first time I was like, oh fuck, I just want to go across the river, damn it. But eventually it became really fun trying to figure it all out.
Cool. Yeah, it was definitely hard in the beginning. I think it's just because we had so many like built-in like assumptions about how you use the tools of Dungeon World to make things happen.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Dungeon World and Red and Pleasant Land, they may not have been like, you know, it may not have been a peanut butter and chocolate combination from the beginning, but it only took us a session to get the swing of it. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, it really wasn't like, you know, it was not that huge of a hurdle. Okay, cool. Well, why don't we keep going then? So, another awesome thing that happened this year as a result of the podcast is we were able to attract the attention of a lot of people who are also very active in the hobby in their own ways, you know, bloggers and contest organizers and things like that. So I thought we would talk about some of the bloggers and contest organizers who chimed in on my post, talk about their favorite games of the year. The first person who did so is, I think it's Andy Haig. I might be getting his last name wrong. I don't know if any of you guys know him or not, but I think it's Andy Haig. And he chose Swords Without Master. Kristen, you want to read what he had to say about Swords Without Master?
Yeah. So Andy actually sounds like he had a pretty easy time picking his choice, unlike some of us. He says, easily Swords Without Master. I could see that being my answer for years to come. Why? Because of one day running that game at a small gaming convention in Washington, D.C. this year. There's this pervasive creative energy that comes out of the game. I get excited about running the game as the game plays out because of the amazing vision that gets generated between the players. It's magical. And the only other game I've ever felt that from has been Golden Sky Stories.
All right. That's a pretty powerful endorsement of Swords Without Master. Yeah. It's like, I don't think my feelings for it are that strong. I love it. I think it's a great game. One thing I'll say for it is, Swords Without Master often gets lauded for like its use of like the two tone dice, you know, like, okay, now the tone is grim and now the tone is jovial. And that's a cool aspect of the game. That creative challenge of like making your narration fit the overtone, or the tone that is in play. But the thing I think the game does is actually pretty brilliant. And maybe it's by Epi Ravachol, we should mention. And he may have stolen this from somebody else. I don't know. But I love that the game like has the story that you end up telling has this really like beautiful cohesion because you are picking out elements of the narration and writing them on a card. And these are things you're picking out because you like them, right? They are things that stuck out to you as like a thing you really liked. And so you're writing those things down. And then as part of your finale, you're reincorporating those elements that you've already stated that you liked into the finale of the story. You can't help but end up with a really, really like satisfying tale, you know? It's kind of genius in that way. That's my feeling on Swords Without Master anyway.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that sort of that style of taking note of interesting things and then mechanically being compelled to reincorporate them later on, which we will see.
Well, I did that with Public Access. I mean, the game that Kristen mentioned at the top. I did something similar because, and I don't mind saying that Society of Dreamers and Swords Without Master were big influences on me in that regard.
And you see it in like Annalise, that sort of thing, because you'll get rewarded for bringing things back up later on. But I think, we'll talk more about that sort of thing later.
Yes, I guess we will. Apparently we will.
Teaser.
Is there anything else you want to say about Swords Without Master?
No, cut to commercial.
All right. Another blogger. We should mention that Andy's blog is called Ludicrous Gaming. And I've looked at most of it. It's pretty good. He's been a little quiet lately, but I hope he hears this and gets active again because I like what he has to say about games.
It's a really cool blog. I'm surprised at how open rapper Ludacris was to role playing games.
Yeah.
I was able to win him over.
Actually, Ludacris misspells the word ludicrous. The rapper Ludacris misspells the word ludicrous, and Andy misspells the word ludicrous in a different way.
No.
Yeah. So it's
do you
actually
know
not
what I
easy
think
to find
of
if you
that?
know how to spell it. Yeah.
I find it just
ludicrous?
fine. No, it's fine. Sorry. No problem.
Okay, so another blogger who who has been active in our community in recent months is Keith. I'm going to mispronounce his last name too.
It's Majou.
Majou. Thank you, Rich. Keith Majou, who runs the Rolling Boxcar blog, and he's actually been playing with us lately, Dan, hasn't he? And he's pretty good.
Yep.
Yeah, I like him a lot. He's pretty cool. He chose Night Witches. He says, for me, it's a toss-up between Night Witches, Call of Cthulhu, and The Warren. I'll just ignore that second one. I'll just say I'm gonna retcon Keith's post and say, for me, it's a toss-up between Night Witches and The Warren. Each of which I played once this year, but all are really awesome games, or I should say both of them are really awesome games. I think I'm going to have to give it to Night Witches, though, by Jason Morningstar. I am a lover of history, and this theme really resonated with me. The gameplay was outstanding, and I can see room for very diverse narratives. It just occurred to me, you're supposed to be reading that, Kristen. God damn it.
I know, you stole my job, but I wasn't going to say anything.
I know. That's fine. Okay. I can't disagree with any of that. Night Witches is pretty awesome. Let's keep going. Josh Jordan, he said he likes a game called A Real Game by Caitlin Bell. I think it was a Game Chef winner, and Josh is one of the new organizers of Game Chef, correct, Rich?
That is correct.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for confirming that. He's really new to he's super new to the community, and actually Game Chef I'm never really super in tune with Game Chef until it's over, and even then it's like months and months after it's over is when I start to hear about the games. I'd like to change that though. I'd like to get more involved or at least like paid closer attention to what's going on with that. But he chose this game called A Real Game. I looked it up. I wasn't familiar with it before today, and it's really interesting. It's like a one-player role-playing game. It seems like kind of a choose-your-own-adventure thing, and I don't want to say too much about it because I think it would spoil it, because I think you're supposed to just kind of experience it like yourself. But it's really interesting. It uses like a sort of House of Leaves style text layout on the pages, which that's a book that came out a long time ago, like 15 years ago or so, that has like this really like kind of gimmicky page layout, like the way the words are arranged on the page are supposed to make you feel a certain way, kind of like an E.E. Cummings poem, right? And so it was neat. I didn't finish it, but it definitely looked like a cool thing. And there aren't very many like one-player role-playing games, so it might be worth checking out just for that reason.
It literally takes about 5 minutes to finish, so you should probably do that.
Did you do it?
Yeah,
did you do it?
We could pause the podcast now and all go through it, and we'd be back in like 5 minutes.
Okay. Well, so we'll give us your thoughts, Dan. What do you think?
Like you said, it's something where if you talk about it too much, it kind of ruins it in some ways. So I will say my thoughts are it's free. It's on Caitlin Bell's Patreon. Patreon. It is on her Patreon, and so you can go look at it, and it'll take you like 5 minutes to get through it, and it's totally worth doing.
Okay, cool, good. That's good. Well, I shall sacrifice 5 minutes for it.
You should, yeah.
I was just kind of thumbing through it. I was like, okay, this is pretty cool.
I'm gonna spend 5 minutes doing something. A real sacrifice.
Yeah.
I was just joking, Steve. God, okay.
Well, but Jason has to put it on his calendar first before he can do it. So.
Yeah. If it's not on the calendar, it's going to be... You know what? Honestly, I've said it before. The Apocalypse World play-by-post right now is really, really like just rocking my world, Rich, because it's gaming that I'm doing off schedule, and I don't know how to handle myself. I can't cope with it. Yeah, no, it's great. I'm loving it. But it's like. People don't understand how compartmentalized my life is. It's super, super compartmentalized, and Rich is just violating it nonstop with his play-by-post.
It's
just destroying
always on. There's no
my little
escape.
spaces. It's true. Yeah, it's super good though. I hope people go look at that link that you posted earlier this week because it's pretty awesome. Let's keep going. David Sheardwan, who organizes the 200-word RPG challenge, he chose Into the Odd. Kristen, why don't you go ahead and resume your duties, Kristen. Read Into the Odd for us, what he said about it.
So David said that he would choose Into the Odd simply because it's the most surprising. He says, I have never in all capital letters, I have never liked dungeon crawls outside of video games, but Into the Odd made it a real funhouse type of experience that I enjoyed immensely.
All right. Awesome. I'm not super familiar with it myself, but I'll take his word for it. He's also a blogger too. I think David does game reviews as well, like little capsule game reviews. We'll post links to all that stuff.
I gave Into the Odd a couple shots.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's neat. It is kind of an industrial age dungeon crawler type setting with a very stripped down rule set. There's a free version of the rules that anybody can pick up, and then a cute little version as well. I first heard about it because John Harper was geeking out back during the development process, and there are some neat tables where you create your character and your stats.
Tables!
You create your character, and your stats also tell you a bit about your equipment. It's I've never seen anything quite like that. It was kind of cool.
I love a table. Love it. Love a table. It's been kind of like it's one of those games, kind of like HSB. It's kind of like on my peripheral vision right now. You know, I think it's going to be like a 2016 thing, right? Like I want to check it out. But thumbs up or thumbs down on that one? Like, should we check it out?
I think you should check it out as a fan of OSR.
Okay, and dungeon crawls. I love dungeon crawls.
It's a new and different way to OSR.
Sweet, awesome, cool. I will take that advice. I shall. Let's keep going. Jason Morningstar, who is best known as the organizer of Golden Cobra, or one of the organizers.
And nothing else.
Nothing else. He chose Fall of Magic, a game which is currently making me sad because I don't have my copy yet. But Kristen, what did Jason have to say about Fall of Magic?
He said, if you hadn't said RPG text, Jason, I would have said the College of Wizardry event I just returned from, which I want to hear about after him teasing it on the podcast. I want to know how that went. But since you did, I'll say playing Fall of Magic for the first time with Ross Cowman and new friends at GameStorm. It was inspired and gentle and full of beauty and great play.
Yeah, Fall of Magic is that scroll game.
Oh yeah, okay.
That Ross, I think it's Ross Coman, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh.
I've heard it pronounced both ways, but
it's Coman.
Coman,
Oops.
yeah.
Sorry,
it's
Ross.
this beautiful scroll. Yeah, I'm sure he's fuming about it, Kristen. I'm sure he's also not listening, so it's probably no big deal.
Well, then it's Cowman.
It's this beautiful scroll that you roll out, and you're telling the story of this world that's where magic is dying, and you're taking the magus across this land for his final journey or something like that. I don't have mine yet, though. I'm so sad. I'm not sure what happened. I think it got lost in the address change or something, but I'll figure it out.
When you play that one, can you reuse the scroll, or do you like alter it in ways that?
You don't. So I'm led to believe that I'm led to believe that like the story you tell is really, really open and interpretive. So it's not like, oh, we do this journey and now there's no more surprises left. I don't think it's like that. I think you kind of play it differently every time, right?
Okay. No, I was making sure it wasn't like what was
Fall
the
of
game
Magic Legacy.
right.
There should be Fall of Magic Legacy. That would be something, wouldn't it? You put stickers on it and you mark it up with Sharpie. No, I don't think it's anything like that, Steve. Okay. And in fact, I think the scroll has two sides now, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was one of the stretch goals. So, and it has a bunch of other stuff that it got added to it because of the stretch goal, like different little locations that you can add to the map via cards and stuff like that. It looks just gorgeous. Everybody I pay attention to on role-playing games who's played it just can't, they go gaga over it. Like, it's supposed to be so great. So I can't wait to try it.
So I've played the 3 sessions of Fall of Magic. We did it.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
awesome.
we did it.
You're full of surprises, Rich. Jesus Christ.
I've played, by the end of the year, I will have played 60 new RPGs.
Put a fucking note, Rich, so I know.
I was doing this hand-waving thing, like, for minutes. You keep talking. We'll never take a breath. What, do you breathe through your ears, Jason?
Well, tell us about it, Rich. How was it?
Okay, so Fall of Magic, for those who know me, you will immediately know that this opening statement is a good thing. It reminded me of Lady Blackbird.
Yes.
So there are points on the map, and you're traveling along. There are a couple of branches that you can take. It's kind of like the Game of Life, except no poorhouse. But as you get to each location, there are a series of kind of inspirations for scenes. And they're very interpretive. They're very open to interpretation. And sometimes they're just like pieces of words. Almost like Sweet Agatha, except you can play this more than once.
Ooh, and 6 Sweet Agatha burn.
Yeah, well, you can buy the PDF. Oh, wait, no, you can't. So Fall of Magic, though, we played it over Hangouts. It played fantastic. I will be honest with you. If I had known it was this fun, I would have definitely backed the Kickstarter. But when I saw $70 for like a scroll, I literally rolled my eyes. I'm like, oh my God, it's a craft project. Yay. I don't care. But the game in that game is pretty sweet. It's got replayability. And the only reason we didn't play all the way through is that the guy who was mostly the organizer and had the PDF, his wife had a baby. So we'll get back to it sometime.
That's why there are no babies in the gauntlet.
I'm not mad anymore. No, I'm just joking. Adam is super
No, that's
great.
cool. That's good to hear. That's good to hear.
It is a super good game, though. Fall of Magic is worth the hype.
Yeah. No, I'm really pumped about it. Even more now. Gosh. I also wish it was called Fall Into Magic. I just want to throw that out there.
I'm sure that he could just scribble out the "of" for you on the scroll when he decides to send it to you.
I was just fall into my.
I heard that he was upset that you called him Cowman.
All right, let's keep going. Okay. Our friend Stephen Watkins, who organizes the CheapCon house convention in Austin. Yay, CheapCon. I haven't gone yet. I'm so jealous of you guys who went this year. He chose Call of Cthulhu. Tell us about Call of Cthulhu, or tell us about what he had to say, Kristen.
So I say that one that has stuck with me throughout this year has been Joel Sparks' Call of Cthulhu. I first played it at Alcon in Houston, and the GM, Zoe Bowles, was fantastic. She really helped the game come to life and handled the players very well. The other players in the game were great, and we discussed our pets throughout the game. I'm going to take a pause here. This is not in his notes. Most people who listen to cat people talk about their cats don't find it great and fantastic. Being a person who has cats, I will tell you that that's true. But back to what Steven said.
He doesn't have cats, though.
He doesn't.
He has a hedgehog.
Oh, that's so cute.
Oh, you're a convert now.
Oh, okay.
Hedgehogs are terrible pets. I'm just going to throw that out there. They don't tell you about this about hedgehogs, but their feet will go through the bars if you get them like a metal wheel thing.
Yeah.
So you have to like thread newspaper through it.
So
And
they
then
don't break their
they
feet.
shit the whole time they're running. And so then you have to like unthread the shit encrusted newspaper through the wheel also.
That's because they belong in a hedge.
That's a good point. Yeah.
The first time...
Have you owned a hedgehog, Dan?
I think it's funny.
Sorry.
I think it's funny that you don't think I actually owned a hedgehog, despite
Yeah,
like,
no,
that.
I guess I know.
I think it's funny that
Yeah.
you're questioning it, but yes, I did own a hedgehog.
The first time I went to his house, or one of the first times, I got the spiel about, okay, so we own a couple of hedgehogs, and it doesn't happen often, but if you don't leave your shoes on, like once a year, you'll step on a quill that we missed, and it'll be just the worst pain ever. But I mean, it's really rare, so it's just fun. so far, no quills, no accidents. We're good.
Gotcha. Okay. What was your hedgehog's name? Just 'cause
My hedgehog's name was Koosh.
Oh, cute. All right. That's very cute. Okay.
Wow.
Back to Steven. So Steven says...
It was the 90s.
That's a good point. Steven says, the other players of the game were great. We discussed our pets throughout the game. The game was tense and dark, or dark enough, and one cat gave the ultimate sacrifice to save the day. The cat roleplay was fantastic, and the rules are light enough, cats don't know math, that it was easy to get into. I got to play it again and introduce it to some friends at Gen Con in August. And again, the cat roleplay was fantastic. One player spent the game silently licking his paws and being dismissive, as cats do.
That's a good story. That's good. It's good. I don't have anything to add to that. I don't know anything about the game, so unfortunately. But now I feel like I need to check it out, though. Jeez.
I feel like we've discussed before how some members of the Gauntlet who will remain nameless have some nerd shame about playing role-playing games in public, and I don't think this
The minute somebody's just licking their hands at the table, I'm leaving.
Yeah,
I'm gone.
Yeah. Dan's gonna take a runner if anybody tries to cat roleplay. But it sounds fun.
All right. Shall we do a co-host pick? Let's do a co-host pick. Let's reveal our second co-host pick for favorite game of 2015. Drum roll. Steve, what is your favorite game of 2015?
All right. Well, my favorite game of 2015 is Society of Dreamers. And here's the point where I point out, I'm glad Jason's requirements for this were pretty lax, because this came out like 5 or 6 years ago or something.
Right.
I'm about to give some caveats that make me sound like I'm not happy with the game. That is totally not the case. But I probably would have chosen something a little more recent. But most of my gaming comes through when we would meet up for Sundays, for Story Game Sunday, we would call it, right? And that was almost exclusively one-shots. So I've played like, I don't know, 40 role-playing games this year, and there's like 4 of them that I've played more than once. So I went with Society of Dreamers. It edged out the competition in the form of the Final Girl, largely based on the fact that the Final Girl is unobtainable. It is this hobby's unobtainium, and but also because it's really great. I've played 4 times now, 3 of them this year. We've talked about it before, but just quickly, Society of Dreamers is I don't know why I hesitate to call it a horror game, even though that's pretty much what we aim for when we play. But it's a surreal investigation game where you're all members of a secret society called the Society of Dreamers, who have all been affected by these creatures that dwell within dreams that they call nymosites, and you're attempting to investigate them. And it plays in one session. It's a one-shot game, and there are a number of things that I think it does either uniquely or well. The first of which is just the sort of mood and the setup for the game. And part of that is the game, and part of it is what we do when we play the game, right? But it includes things like what you did with Tin Candles and Lovecraft-esque, I think, when you guys were playing. You play in the dark with candlelight. Mm-hmm. And the first, or actually, I don't remember if we did this the first time I played last year, but we sort of go in with an agreement that we're going to, treat it seriously and try to avoid jokes.
Right.
No jokes. Yeah, no jokes.
And
I think that's in the rules, actually, is no joking.
Oh, is it?
I think so, yeah.
He mentions he calls it out real specifically as like a best practice.
Yeah, okay. One thing, though, that I think isn't in the rules, but that is probably a very good idea, at least for us, considering it's a game that takes place in Europe, involving characters from a number of different nationalities, we avoid accents.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that makes people
That's
laugh.
such good advice.
Right.
Oh my God, that's the best advice ever. That's such good advice, Steve. I'm glad you said that.
Well, it was yours, so I'm sure.
Well, I forgot it was mine, but it's great advice.
Yeah, it works really well. I've done that every time I've played, at least this year, and it's worked out really well. So we're just sitting around talking like this, even though there's like a Norwegian and a Moroccan and an Ethiopian and a German. Yeah. But you get over that quickly enough, and there's no he sounds Russian, right?
Right.
Yeah. There's no
constant
constant invitation to laugh at somebody's terrible accent. But one thing that the game incorporates, I was a little afraid going into it because I thought it sounded gimmicky, and I'm not going to claim it isn't, but it involves you select the type of scene you're going to have throughout like 2/3 of the game by using a little dream board type of equivalent and a planchette from a Ouija board, at least theoretically. You could just use a coin or something, but you all around the table put one finger on the planchette or planchette analog, and you let the spirits guide you. Usually it requires a little nudge or several nudges because, I don't know, because early in the game you banish the spirits, which brings me to my next thing.
That's true.
Yeah. One thing I really love about this game is the pre-game and in-game ritual component. It incorporates 2 rituals, the first of which is, I don't know if this comes from actual like seances, but it feels very much in keeping with that sort of thing. Everybody stands up and goes around the room and basically tries to chase off the spirits by...
Yeah, you yell in the corners.
Yeah, you yell and you make loud noises and clap at the corners and tell the spirits to be gone.
It's super uncomfortable the first time you do it. Oh my God.
I think it serves several purposes, though. One is, like, it feels like that's a stupid thing that, I bet people did that in the late 1800s or something. It's basically a LARP element, which gets you into character somewhat. So I like that, but it brings the players together because you're doing something silly together. Like you're all laughing, but you're laughing at each other, and it's not. Yeah, there's no one singled out, right? And it's required, so you can point at the text in the book and say, "Oh, sorry, you guys, we got to do this." And it also, since it is fundamentally silly, lets you sort of get some of that out of your system so that you can sit down and take the game a little more seriously. And the next ritual before the game starts is you all close your eyes, and it gives you a little script for for whoever.
It's like a visualization exercise.
You're all sort of visualizing something together, and it's a bizarre sort of dreamlike thing to get you, I think, in the mood for the game to come. And then post game, you banish the spirits again, which calls an end to the session. Sort of like with Polaris. Polaris started the game, you light a candle, into the game, you blow it out. Anyway, so it's an investigation game in a sense, and you're all collectively deciding as the game plays what the Nymosites are and what they want and how they interact with you and with the world. Because the fact of their existence is almost the only thing you know about the fiction going in, aside from your 1800s secret society group of people from all over. And the way the game does this is after every scene, whoever ran the scene basically asks if the table thinks they learned something new about the Nymosites. And it can be something vague, or like I'm trying to think of examples. Like they are accompanied by a sea breeze or by the cold or something like that. Or it can be actually that was specific enough that is a bad example for vague.
A more vague one would be like in the scene described, the character like steps across the threshold of a door that's painted red, and so you might say they cannot cross red, or they live across the red, or whatever. Right? You have this like sort of abstract, kind of vague, like clue. Yeah.
Or just, I think we've had like the number 9 is important or something like that. Yeah.
Right.
And so you're putting in a bunch of these elements, and you write them on a note card, leave it in the middle of the table. And so everyone can reference them. And since you have such an easy reference, they come up again and again in future scenes. And then there's a sort of tilting point, and then the latter third of the game or so, you're done adding those, and you start reincorporating them. And whoever in the scene does the best job of doing that gets that card, which it doesn't really matter. Anyway, you're mechanically encouraged to reincorporate them, right? Like we were talking about earlier with whatever the hell that other game was.
Swords Without Master.
Yeah, and this is the way this functions. Like these are creatures that live and operate through dream, right? So a certain amount of surreality comes with the territory, and that works very nicely with the fact that it's a GM-less investigation game where you go in not really knowing what's going on. And so there can be discrepancies and different takes on things, and that works perfectly. And things do not have to make sense. And in fact, I'd say it's probably preferable if they don't quite gel and if the puzzle pieces don't all fit together. But you're going through this game, and again, since it's GM-less, you're creating things collaboratively from whole cloth, more or less. And so it gives you what a lot of investigation games lack, which is a mystery that is constructed around the player characters. And so the fact that your character, grew up in a frigid wasteland and had a sister who acted strangely, that becomes important. And it's not just, we are the group of randos in a Call of Cthulhu game who who are tasked with investigating this thing. And if
the hobo and the librarian, right.
right.
But if a different hobo and librarian showed up, they would solve the mystery in the exact same way.
Yes, exactly.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And it's a very simple game, and I think it accomplishes what it accomplishes very elegantly and very well. And also it's like, I don't know, $15 for a physical copy off of Lulu, and even cheaper for the PDF.
Super cheap on Lulu. Yeah.
Let me make sure I didn't leave anything else out here. Hold on.
No, I think you got it.
Yeah. All right, hooray.
That was an excellent summary of Society of Dreamers. I think, that, we've talked about it before, but we've never really talked about like the actual like mechanics much. So that was pretty awesome. I love it. It's such a great game. I don't have anything to add to that at all.
I had 3 very different experiences with players of very different, RPG game experience levels. And it all functioned great. And even the people like, I played with one woman who'd only played Fiasco before, like one session of Fiasco and then this. And even she's, getting into the creepy nature and reincorporating things. And, it just, it facilitates creating a great story in a single session. And I think it's really good.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Shall we move on, gang?
We shall.
Let's. So one really cool thing that we got to experience this year as a result of the podcast project is we've gotten to meet and speak with a number of role-playing game designers. This is something that a feature we added to the show kind of late in the year, but I'm happy with it. I think we had it was a bit of a trick in the beginning because I think the interview style episodes were maybe not as great as what we eventually landed on, which was just having the RPG designer guest co-host the show with us, kind of like Kristen or Steve would. I think that was the better format. When we first did it with Epi Ravachol, it was like Dan and I were like, yeah, this is the way to do it, right? But that said, we had a lot of great interviews. And I can't wait to have more game designers onto the show. So it's going to be awesome. So I thought we'd go through some of their picks, because we had some of those people, reply to my post. Let's start with Robert Bull, who is the designer of Misspent Youth. He chose the game Masks, which that was chosen by a couple of other people. So I think we're going to get a chance to talk about Masks a little bit later. But he chose Masks. He just chose Masks. He didn't have much to say about it, but I know he loves it. And then Epidiah Ravachol chose Sanguine's Usagi Usagi Yojimbo. If you go check out the episode that we did with him, he talks about that game in very glowing terms. Like it's the sort of game that I don't think I would like or have noticed otherwise, if not for the fact that Epi like really sold the shit out of that game. So I'm probably going to check it out. I don't know if I'll play it, but Senguin's Usagi Yojimbo was his pick. And then we had a sit down with Emily Care Boss, who is the designer of the Breaking the Ice games, the Romance trilogy, Breaking the Ice, what's it called? Under My Skin, and then what's the
Shooting the Moon.
Again? Shooting the Moon, yeah. And then also games like Misericord and others. So she's awesome. She chose Meg Baker's Playing Nature's Year. Steve, you want to read what she had to say about that?
Yeah. So Emily Care Boss, Playing Nature's Year, talks about being super excited about Meg Baker's Playing Nature's Year. She loves that it's a thematic set of games that focus on the changing seasons of the land in our lives, and such lovely, casually accessible mechanics. Really brilliant addition to our repertoire as gamers.
Yeah, it's stupendous. We just got the final PDF, the Kickstarter backers did, with all of the games. I've only played 2 of them, but I've mentioned it in other places in the community and on the show before, but they are really special. These are really, really special games. They are each very short and can be played with just a couple of people if that's all you've got, and they only last about 30 minutes or so, if even that. They use really easy to access mechanics, and importantly, they have this really beautiful reflective quality to them. The idea in each one is that you make a wish, or you use that game's interpretation of a wish. You reflect on something. There's something you want or something you want to dwell on. And the game, through the mechanics of the game, you explore that. And then there's a winner, usually at the end, who have their wish granted, right? It's kind of a cute touch. They're really, really lovely. Like I've said before, they feel like ancient games. They feel like folklore. They just feel like something you might have found in a dusty old tome somewhere, right? But they're brand new and they're really fresh. And like Emily said, they're a really great addition to kind of what the hobby, kind of what's out there. They're just so unique and neat and really cool. And I have a pull quote on the book. That's a thing that's happened with it.
Oh, nice.
That's not important to anything at all, but my name is on the back as a pull quote. So, but they're great. I wanted to say we played one of them we played a couple at Metatopia, and the one that we played, that I really liked was the Halloween themed one. It's called At the Stroke of Midnight, and you're all like people of an indeterminate age or a ambiguous age who are traveling to a graveyard, trying to get there by midnight so that you can speak to your beloved dead, right? And the game asks you to actually think of like a real world, a person in your own life who's actually passed away and what you might want to say to them. You keep it personal. You don't share that with the group, but you use that while you're playing it. It's really interesting how that knowledge informs the choices you make as a character. And I don't want to go into all the details, but there were real moments when, I was making choices based off whether I really wanted to actually, I had second thoughts about whether I wanted to actually say the thing I wanted to say, to this person who I had lost in my life. And there was a really touching moment at the end of the game where one of the players was just really clearly visibly emotional about it and he chose to share his story with the group. And it was just so nice. It was just really amazing that this game caused us to all have this little, in the middle of a convention, this little moment where we all just kind of had sharing time and we got to kind of reflect on some things that were really personal. And I think any game that can do that is really special. And these games are super, super special. So people should check those out for sure. I don't know how familiar you guys are with them, but they're really awesome.
Well, now I want to play them all now. That sounds amazing.
You should. Yeah. They're really great. I mean, they were I felt like they were a little under the radar, even though they were by Meg Baker, who is, a well-regarded game designer in the indie space. But for whatever reason, I think my impression is that people kind of overlooked it because it's not a very traditional role-playing game. It's not you have characters and you have a GM and it's you're not really even telling a story, so to speak, in some of these games. But I think it was a mistake. I think people should go back and take a look at those because they're really something. So anyway, Playing Nature's Year. Pretty cool stuff. Let's keep going here. Josh Fox, who is one of the co-authors of Lovecraft-esque, he chose Dream Askew. Steve, what did you have to say about Dream Askew?
Josh says, I'm going to say Dream Askew. I didn't get to play it much, but the design has caught and held my attention, and the play is some of the best I've had. I really want to play it again soon. The thing that really sings to me is the way that everyone gets to be both GM and player at all times, gaining the best of both worlds, but in a structured way that I find more helpful than a more free-form GM-less approach. Well, that's interesting.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. We've played it once. I didn't have as much luck with it, but I'd like to go back to it, though, I think. Give it another shot. We had kind of a hard time with it, but I think that was... I think there were factors in play that didn't have anything to do with the game that made it that way. But
yeah, I've heard a ton of people talk about how much they like it, so I'm sad I missed the session you're talking about.
Don't be sad.
Yeah.
It wasn't very good. So,
Good point.
Dan with the harsh Dream Askew assessment.
no, I'm not necessarily saying that Dream Askew isn't any good. I'm saying that the session we played of Dream Askew was not any good.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, it's good you clarified that, because you're right. Our session was not good.
Yeah.
It was really clunky and bad. But I'd like to maybe like ping Josh on that and kind of find out like why, a little bit more about why he likes it so much, because I feel like there was something we were missing, you know? Like, didn't you feel that way, Dan?
Absolutely.
Like there was something critical about the experience that we weren't tapping into, and it made it kind of hard for us. Rich, have you played that one?
I played it, and I'm with you. It's a little challenging. I haven't quite found out what the secret sauce is. And there's so many people. John Stavropoulos is a
just
big
ketchup with
fan
mayo.
I'm not much on mayo, so that's the problem. Okay. Thanks, Steve.
Sorry, keep going. What were you saying?
Yeah, I think there's some...
something about John Stavropoulos.
Yeah, John Stavropoulos is a big fan of Dream Askew. I've heard a lot of people speak well of it. So it's... I'll be honest with you, the first time I played Apocalypse World, I kind of hated it. So my first impression of games does not often hold true if I push through and it's a good game and I get it. So that's kind of where I'm at with Dream Askew. I want to try it again with somebody who actually knows what they're doing. I think it's one of those games where if you get 4 people who've never played it before, it's and they're dumb like
it's hard.
Yeah.
I'm with you though. I want to try it again too, because I just hear how people love it so much, and I feel bummed that I didn't have that experience, you know. But I'm willing to admit that it's probably because we just weren't really grokking it, you know. So cool. Let's keep going. Becky Annison, who is the other co-author of Lovecraft-esque. Lovecraft-esque is a great game, by the way. It didn't make my list of best games, but I gave it some love last week. So, but she chose Idris B. Is that correct?
I think so.
Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Yeah. It's Idris B is what I've heard.
Idris B. And I've been practicing the author of Idris B's name all week. Okay.
Oh, wait. Okay, hold on. So I'm going to read this one, and you step in at the appropriate time.
Oh, that's good. Okay, so go ahead and do it.
So Becky says, probably Idris B by
Ula Pievid Yevid.
That sounds pretty good.
Very nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm assuming well done.
So do you want me to just cut in that like audio file that he sent right there?
Yeah, maybe that might be the best move. No, I practice this long. It's Ula Pievid Yevid. I think that's pretty good. Like for my not being Norwegian or whatever, right? I think he's Norwegian.
Can we just call him OPG?
Oh, that's pretty good. You down with OPG?
Yeah, you know me.
Yeah, you know me.
Nice.
Sorry, keep going. So Idris B by Ula Pievid Yevid.
Becky says, I've played it a bit this year, but mostly I've really loved the GMing advice section and the way it helps you develop a loose framework in order to incorporate as much improvised material by the players as seamlessly as possible. Any of you guys played that game?
I haven't played it. I have a copy of the book and the cards, and they're super cool. So I really want to get it to the table. I just haven't gotten a chance yet. But like just reading through the book is really good because it's like it's super surreal, and so it's like kind of a dream city type thing, and so but he goes through all of the things you'll find in the different quarters of the city, and it's great stuff. It's like he goes into detail about like the lion that just randomly roams the streets in like the financial district or whatever, and just fantastic stuff, like super evocative. So
I got that through a bundle of holding not too long ago, and when I was, judging whether or not it was a worthwhile purchase, the bundle, I came across that one, and it sounded very much up my alley.
Yeah, and it uses a similar sort of system to Archipelago. It actually, I think that was where the Archipelago system originated, and so it uses the same cards for like the resolution cards of yes and no but whatever. But then I
thought Archipelago was Matthias Holter.
Yeah, I mean they're both Norwegian. There was a lot
and they're therefore the
so
same
they obviously know each other, and
no, but like I think that he borrowed from
Yeah, I think
and so, but also,
well, actually, Ula has recommended that we have Matthias on the show, so I think they know each other.
Yeah. I think they do legitimately know each other, not just because they're both Norwegian. But so anyway, instead of having the cards that show, like in Archipelago, you have the cards that you draw that show like how one player's element becomes important or whatever. So in Idris B, there's cards that are just like, this is a surreal thing that happens. And so you'll like pull a card and it'll be like something like, oh, skip forward to a scene like 10 minutes in the future and you're not allowed to say how you got here and things like that. Or like, stop and have a conversation outside of the game about like with a reflection of yourself played by another character or something like that. So just super interesting stuff to like inject the surreal into the game.
That's cool.
Yeah. Sounds really cool.
Is there anything else you want to say about Idris B?
Nope.
All right, let's keep going. Well, let's talk about designers that we hope to have on the show who submitted who gave me submissions for this post. I've got a few listed here. Speaking of Ula Pidid Yevit. Ula chose for his favorite game of 2015, 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. That's an interesting choice, I think, based off what you just said, Dan. What we know about him so far. I think it's surprising that 5th Ed was his jam this year, but I don't know. Maybe not. It might be amazing. I've never played it. So, but Steve, what did you have to say about 5th Ed?
D&D 5 is the one I've played for the longest. 17 sessions since it came out last year. Because playing with my old friends, the dynamics of a long-term campaign, the setting the main GMs came up with, GMs plural, interesting, D&D nostalgia in a pretty functional / streamlined version of the classic rules.
Yeah, I've heard that about it, so I'd like to try it out at some point.
Have any of us managed to play the biggest?
I have not yet. No. I haven't yet.
I played a session and a half.
Fifth edition?
A fifth.
Okay.
I'll admit I still like 4th better. I feel like 5th edition is halfway between Dungeon World and 4th.
Okay.
And so if that's what you're looking for, then it's great. But I will say that, I'm starting to crave some D&D. I'm starting to crave...
don't you play tons of Dungeon World?
No, I know, but I get the D&D nostalgia thing, and for a couple months now I've been thinking that I miss that old school magic. So... I can empathize.
Okay. All right.
I love what we do, but I do miss it sometimes.
What do you miss?
Be the change you want to see in the world, Kristen. Run some D&D.
I know.
Do you miss it like system wise? Or
I miss the system. I miss
4th
having 4th Ed. I love move minor and action.
Yeah.
I like the long-term story arc, getting gritty in a dungeon.
Extremely long-term story arc where nothing ever happens. Yeah.
Spending a good 3 or 4 hours like dungeon crawling and like fighting it out and like going like, no.
3 or 4 hours?
You
What's that, one fight?
You can't just hop over. Yeah, it's an encounter, yeah. You can't just hop over there. There's rough terrain over there. You have to plan out where you're going. And no, you can't just shoot in that direction. There's a pillar in front of you. What are you going to do about that? And yeah.
Oh, God.
I know. I'm the odd girl out.
4th Ed, I think Dan and I both played quite a bit of 4th Ed. Yeah. It goes so far in a direction I'm uninterested in that it starts to become interesting. Mm-hmm. Like I would never go to it for role playing because it's terrible. At
right?
That.
Yeah,
it's just the worst. But sometimes I kind of want to.
It's all right. Yeah. Moving little figurines around on a hex map.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a really sweet board game married to a really boring role playing game.
Yes.
All right, well, let's keep going. So, yeah, Ula chose 5th edition D&D. Game designer Marshall Miller, who designed The Warren and Nano World and a couple of other things that listeners will know. He chose for his favorite game of 2015, Worldwide Wrestling. That was one of our most anticipated games of 2015, and I don't think we managed to play it.
What?
I didn't play it.
I've seen you wearing the T-shirt. You haven't played that yet?
I know. I wear the T-shirt all the time. I love it. I know. I'm a poser. I know. I haven't played it. We will play it. I just haven't. It will happen. It's a PBTA thing. It'll be really easy to get to the table. I just haven't done it yet. Actually, The Warren, ironically enough, was what bumped it off the calendar initially because I was going to do it in last month, but I decided to do The Warren instead. What did he have to say about Worldwide Wrestling, Steve?
So Marshall Miller says, my favorite RPG of 2015 was Nathan Paletta's Worldwide Wrestling. I was never really a wrestling fan, but the book does such a great job of explaining what makes wrestling so exciting and really gives you a framework for understanding the matches and their ongoing stories. I had to stop reading to go watch old wrestling matches at least 3 times while reading the rules. It also succeeds as a Powered by the Apocalypse game by adapting existing mechanics and information structures in new and interesting ways. Oh, Rich, you've played this,
cool.
though.
Yeah.
Rich has played it. Rich, tell us about it.
I played Worldwide Wrestling at Camp Nerdly this year. So it was in a cabin in the middle of the woods in Prince William Forest, Virginia. I had the amazing fortune of the GM being Joe Zantek. And if you guys, he has run quite a bit of it online as well. You really should play when he runs. He does it so spot on. He's a really big wrestling fan. I'm not anymore. I was when I was a kid. Just kind of, I don't know, just not my thing. But I really had a good time with this. The mixture of this game with parts of Powered by the Apocalypse, enough to make you familiar. You've got moves, you've got a playbook, but then there's a bolt-on of a thing called Heat, and then the attitude of the kayfabe, which is the term for we kind of all know this fake, but we're pretending that it's real enough. Yeah. It has mechanics to encourage 2 player characters to work together in a match where they are fighting against each other to create the most entertainment value.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's really cool.
But you can, as a player, choose for your character to try to screw over the other player character and work against what management has told you to do. And there are other permutations for that as well. So I found that juxtaposition of, well, I can make a character, quote unquote, this is what my character would do, type of deal. And it's supported without making anybody necessarily freak out. The other part of Worldwide Wrestling that was super fun is that the promo spots that you do have mechanical impact. So, Joe he did the spot on Jesse the Body Ventura impression. Like, guys, it was so good. It's so good. Like, he should just can it and, I don't know, sell it somehow.
Sorry, real quick, point of order. Is a promo the thing where they're talking to the camera, talking about how much they're going to, destroy their opponent or whatever?
It's exactly that. Yeah, Jesse the Body Ventura would come and bring you, you're supposed to be in character as your wrestler, and he would ask you a couple of kind of provocative questions about the match upcoming, and you, of course, would talk smack, and then you'd roll some dice to try to generate a little bit of a benefit for you going into the match, and so that was fantastic. And then, another aspect of World War, I was thinking like a wrestling match. Great. So 2 people, 4 people, they're going to get to do stuff. All the other people, because it's always a huge table. Like, it's 6 people. Like, what are the other people going to do? No, you step in and those people are the color commentators and they are giving, and they can actually have mechanical benefits as audience towards the match itself. There are so many great ideas in Worldwide Wrestling.
Yeah, that sounds really cool.
Yeah. I have 0% interest in wrestling unless, like, the Ultimate Warrior is, doing a promo and talking nonsense. And then that still sounds great to me.
The final game designer who we hope to have on in 2016, who told us what his favorite game was this year, is Tom McGrenery, who is the designer of UED, You Are the Resistance, and also his new Kickstarter game, Melandros. He chose The Warren, which is by Marshall Miller. I'm going to go ahead and just read his. He says, I like rabbits. And The Warren is the rabbiest game there is. Plus, play testing it was how my current gaming group got together, which was nice. Yeah, Warren was pretty cool. In the interest of time, I'm going to suggest that listeners go check out. I've written some posts about The Warren as we've been playing it. The most recent one I thought was very well. I spent a lot of time on it thinking about my sincere thoughts about The Warren. So you should go check that out. But it was a great game. I think of us, it's just me and you who've played it, right, Rich? Well, and Dan play tested it. We play tested it, I guess.
Yes,
Dan.
yes, we have played that game because you ran it and I was there.
Yeah, there's so many games. Well, I'm just confirming that Kristen and Steve did not play it.
Correct.
And I wasn't aware. So, but The Warren is awesome. Is there anything you want to say about The Warren, Rich, before we keep going?
It's the rabbiest game that I've played in 2016.
it's pretty rabbity. It's awesome. No, it's really, really great. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our third co-host pick. Rich, what is your favorite game of 2015?
I was really torn, and there was a part of my heart that wanted to go with Wandering Monster High School because I had such a fantastic time running that game for the Intercontinental Group of Awesome. In the end, though, I had to think about my maximum fun and what would really took it for me was Masks.
Okay.
I don't know, it's like the choice of a new generation. There's some kind of subtitle thing. So there's the only maskiest mask Kickstarter that raises like 6 figures. But it was, I'll tell you guys, when I started off in the playtest of this game, it was rough. It was a really, really rough game. Like, there were some ideas, and there was a lot of work to get to them, and just watching iteration over iteration. Brendan would change it sometimes 2-3 times during the week, and we play every other week. And so watching this thing take shape, and then as the Kickstarter started to come in, and he was bringing more people in, more eyes on the project, taking the playtest feedback from other groups and the like, and seeing this thing become what now can be downloaded and tried, just the playbooks, the basic moves, and the GM moves. That alone, I went and I ran a Masks High School miniseries, and it was really damn fun. Like, it's a great implementation of the Apocalypse World engine in that it allows you to move stats around based on your influence over another character. And so, in Monster Hearts, right, you're trying to get strings, and strings is this kind of separate, effectively bolt-on economy. But it's kind of interesting that in Masks, you're playing the young adults that are malleable based on the impressions that other people have of them, and to tell someone what you think of them, and then to have a statistical effect on what they can do going forward. To me, it was very evolutionary within the stat system. And I wasn't sure if you could pull it off when we first started. I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, print out this thing, and I got to move these little like coins up and down. And as we work through the permutations of how to move those stats along and what that means, and locking in a stat and how you can make sure nobody can mess with this particular stat of mine. And so, okay, that makes sense to me now. Great. And Kristen, if you remember a previous episode where you were talking about, well, we're just role playing. I don't know if I necessarily want to do a move to make this happen. There's some stuff where you need to insert the mechanics in Masks to force your impression on somebody rather than playing nice, because you're trying to play in the spirit of these kind of slightly snipey, possibly slightly dysfunctional teen supers. And it's pretty fun when you do it without getting that weird kind of nasty feeling that sometimes I get when I play Monster Hearts, where I'm like, God, everyone here sucks. Like, I hate all of these people. Yeah. They all need to die in a fire. But in Masks, but in Masks, like, you can have that moment, and then you can kind of flip and go, whoa, nobody knocks my buddy into a fire hydrant. You are going down. And then there are team mechanics that will allow you to like roll up together and actually go from 0 to hero. And it's great. And the playbooks are really evocative and exciting. And the moves do a great job of boiling it down from like every other super game. Like I was raised in the Champions era, like that. I used to sit around doing freaking algebra to make my character, and to play Masks where it's like, okay, you want to do this thing. It's this move that boils down a whole bunch of different permutations of how to do this thing. It's more about, are you unleashing your powers? Yes, I am. Okay, cool. Let's see what the impacts are. So it does that beautiful thing that the Apocalypse World games that are really well cooked do, of taking the tropes and the aspects of that genre and boiling it down into moves that make sense and are very flexible. And so that's why I eventually decided it's got to be Masks.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. That's great. Yeah. Awesome. That's on the list for 2016 for me. I can't wait to give it a shot. And I'm not even that into superheroes, but every time somebody describes it, I'm kind of like with Steve with the wrestlers. I'm like, I'm not really even into that, but this game looks like it's doing something really awesome that I want to experience. So that's pretty cool.
I'm actually not really into superheroes either, but I ran Masks, and I knew the least about comics out of anyone at the table. And so that was a really fun experience too, because like I was totally able to run it because, I know like the beats you should hit in a superhero thing, but they were making references to comic book characters, and I was just smiling and nodding the whole time.
Nice.
All right. Well, let's keep pressing forward here. Okay. So we, over the course of the last year, we have made a ton of new gaming friends. That's been one of the most enjoyable things about playing online games. Rich, being like, the most obvious example because he's on the show now. But,
thank you.
I've enjoyed, getting to know Rich and everything and learning how he plays games and playing games with him, pretty much on a weekly basis now, right? And well, a non-stop basis with the Apocalypse World.
That's right. You never get away from me.
But that's been awesome. We've made so many good gaming friends this year. I have. And so let's talk about some of those folks. Philip, who is from Germany. I've played a few games with him and he's great. He's got this like really wry observational humor that I love so much. And it's always such a kick at the table. He chose a game called The Dark Eye. Rich, do you want to read what he had to say about The Dark Eye?
First of all, I'm going to give my shot at trying to pronounce Der Schwarzog. Der Schwarzog, nice. I think is how it's pronounced. It's a German game.
I think it's Das Schwarz. Was Das Schwarz?
You're right. It's probably Das Schwarzog.
Yeah.
I totally hosted it. I'm sorry for that. So he actually came on back during my old pod-faded podcast, Cannon Puncture, when I did a thing called the Gaming Advocates, where people who haven't made the game, they've just played the heck out of it, will come on and kind of pitch me, and I'll play a slightly neutral person. Pitch me on what it is you love about this particular game. And I miss doing that quite a bit. But he came on and talked about Das Schwarzog, and he sold me on it. It was pretty neat. So what he had to say was that The Dark Eye by Ulysses Spiel, especially Alex Spohr and Jens Ulrich wins out here. It defined my role-playing year 2015. By the way, he did the Gamer Advocate before 2015. So this has kind of been his defined role-playing for a little while.
Yeah, for a long time. Yeah, he's into it.
But the new 5th edition was released this year as the first role-playing book printed with his name on it. He spent the beginning of the year taking part in the last test run before the game was finalized, and he was a test reader and avid giver of feedback for other products afterward. He also played the game quite a bit, and he did demo games for the new edition at conventions, and played a campaign for the old edition as a kind of goodbye and finished it, which was enjoyable to him. And glad I don't have to bother with these rules again, way. 4th edition D&D, Kristen. Anyway, seeing the new edition come out on its own and taking a small part in shaping it made it his rather trad-gamey choice over all the indie things that he could have picked. And he's sure that others will mention a lot of those, which we have.
As we have been doing, yes. Awesome. The Dark Eye. Another good friend we made that we game with every week, you and I, Rich, is Yoshi. And Yoshi chose masks. Yoshi wrote a really nice post about masks, and he just says a lot of the things that you mentioned in your summary of it when you
Yoshi, I stole from you, like all good things that I do while playing games with you. I stole from you.
I was kind of going down Yoshi's list here, and I was like, oh, I think Rich is just reading Yoshi's thing.
Did. Okay. Yoshi said these things so much smaller. He just did it into bulleted, numbered lists. So
just easy for the picking because it's in bullet points, right?
Yes,
so
I paraphrase.
Good. So yeah, people should go check that out because Yoshi. But yeah, it's Rich. Yeah, Rich just copied Yoshi.
I did. Yoshi, I totally stole from you. You are the man. Yep. Thank you for talking about masks so intelligently. I did not play with at Big Bad Con though, so he's got that one.
One thing he said that I thought was interesting in his description here is he says that the whole stat block is about how you see yourself, and the basic moves can constantly change those values. I think that's interesting. I don't know if you mentioned it or not, Rich. I might have missed it, but I know we've mentioned it in the past. I think Dan talked about this once, but I think that's really cool how your stats are like how you perceive yourself. That's pretty neat. So yeah, masks is what Yoshi chose. And then we've got the people who are I call them the friends to come. They're actually just the people I wasn't sure how to slot them into a neat little category, but no, they're the people who, they're on the gauntlet. They're kind of lurkers. They haven't joined us for a game yet, but we hope that they will soon. We're going to run through some of their picks. Someone who I assume this is not their Christian name or their given name. BPG RPG. I don't know who that is. Is that should I know what that is? BPG RPG? Am I just missing something here?
British Petroleum and Gas? I don't know.
I don't know. BPG RPG says he chose Worldwide Wrestling. Nathan Black chose Fall of Magic. He says it's just so freaking evocative in every way. The physical artifact of it, the way it informs play and reflects the themes of the game. It's just beautiful. Ian Cooper chose Hero Quest Glorantha. I don't know what that is, and I forgot to research it. I know it's a RuneQuest thing, but that's all I know. But he said that it's a perfect combination of a flexible rules-light engine and a RuneQuest 2 style presentation of the setting. Boy, that seems like it really depends on you knowing a lot about RuneQuest, and I don't, unfortunately. I'm sorry. Sorry about that, Ian. And then Shay Davidson chose Deluxe Tunnels and Trolls. Deluxe Tunnels and Trolls. Rich, why don't you read what you had to say about that?
Deluxe Tunnels and Trolls has made my partner and I lightheaded with glee. TNT first entered my life when I was burned out on AD&D, GURPS, and Rollmaster, and I quickly latched onto the idea that we could play any kind of game we wanted without pages of charts and arcane formulas. Griots? I don't know. Griots? Griots? I'll just add as many syllables as I can so it sounds fancier. Griots, rodent masters, and sybaritic nobles wandered the epic campaign we played in high school, and the flexible rules gave players the opportunity to do things that were clever and inspiring without having to worry about double-checking a book. Tunnels and Trolls steered me in the direction of rules-like games and story games.
I've actually been hearing that. Epi Ravishal told us that same thing when he was on the podcast. He was a big proponent of Deluxe Tunnels and Trolls.
The creator of Final Girl is also a big fan of Tunnels and Trolls.
Awesome. So we have some evidence here that Tunnels and Trolls might be something we should be checking out here.
Might be. It's a dungeon crawling game, Dan, so you can give it a pass.
Will do.
I want to play the Tunnels and Trolls. That sounds great.
And then Jesse Coombs says he chooses The Warren as well, by Marshall Miller, and he says, of course, it's The Warren, as if there was no other options.
It is the rabbitiest.
It is the rabbitiest of games. It's true.
Actually, I heard that it's the rabbitiest, but only by a hair.
Oh God! Oh,
Can we just end the podcast now?
Oh God!
I dropped my mic.
Rich,
it's new.
Rich, you're fired from the podcast. That's it. It's over. You're fired. All right.
Yeah, I meant in the entire podcast, not the episode.
Just done. We're done.
Done. 1 year anniversary. No more.
Hey, it might be time to do our fourth co-host pick. Dan, drum roll for Dan. What is your favorite game of 2015?
All right, so my game of 2015 is Soth, and this is by Steve Hickey. We've talked about it before, but it is a game about cultists in a small town who have decided that it's a really great idea to bring back a horrible elder god. And so it's kind of about them gradually going insane, but trying not to appear like they're going insane to the rest of the town. At least like trying to hold their shit together for long enough to actually complete the ritual, which involves, of course, sacrifices and ridiculous culty things. That's the general gist of it. I think the reason that, to me, it was a super important game to me this year is that it was the first game that we played when we moved our Sunday game to the internet. And it worked really well across the internet, and it was all the players that, like, it was like our normal Sunday group just moved online, and it worked super well. Like, it kind of all clicked fairly well, and was like, all right, you know, it was evidence that the future of gaming could be online, like, and that, you know, we could have continuity from playing purely face-to-face to actually playing online.
I'm glad you said that, because that was actually one of the things that when I moved to New Jersey, and it was a big ask for me to say, hey, Dan, can we move Story Game Sunday to online? Because I didn't want to miss that time with you guys. And so I'm glad it worked out. Like I was too. I remember thinking, "Oh, I'm so glad this is great. I'm glad Dan was happy with it. Like I'm glad this is a good thing," because I didn't want to have Story Game Sunday not in my life. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it was really cool. And also special. I would give a shout out to Steve. I know we're not supposed to talk about the good role player, but we can talk about good role playing. And as we've discussed on the podcast before, Steve did some of the most brilliant role playing in that.
Oh, me,
in
not
that
Steve
second
Hickey.
session.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
No, oh yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, Steve, co-host Steve. Yeah, co-host Steve did some really, really excellent role playing in that second session. I was living for it, Steve. You were great.
Okay, yeah, that was a little weird because I was pinch hitting for Farrell, who was in the first session and couldn't make the second.
Yeah. You just kind of picked up, like you were kind of basically playing his character because Farrell couldn't make it, and you knocked it out of the park. I loved it. I was so entertained.
It's a lot of fun trying to incorporate the signs of your character going crazy into, normal conversation.
Yeah.
And I had a list of the things I would refer to Soth as, such as, have you heard of the Great Void? Or whatever. Yeah. Had a list of like 5 at the end, and I was trying to, bring them all up at least once.
Yeah, and so at some point during the game, one of the players can sort of become the servitor of Soth, who is a supernatural monster. And so then they more or less follow the instructions of the other characters. But so Steve's character was that. And I just completely broke all of the rules and was like, all right, I don't even care what you do. Like you are functionally immortal because you are causing way more trouble for the characters than I can as the GM. So like, have at it.
Yeah, it was great. Soth is an awesome game, and I think we've got a lot of Soth in our future. I want to run it. Like I was a player in that game. I really want to try running it because it looks like a good GMing challenge.
Me too. I wouldn't quite know what to think of it unless I sat on the other side, I think.
All right, so my last grouping of community member submissions here are our Gauntlet super fans. Okay. I know a lot of people listen to the podcast, really love the podcast, and I'm sure lots of people fit in different categories here, right? But these 3 guys have all like written like really, really lovely things about the podcast, and in Eloy's case, I know he's listened to them multiple times, and that is the sort of thing that I don't know about you, Dan and Rich, but for me, that's the kind of thing that keeps me going, right? Because we don't, we're not getting sweet ass stamps.com money off this, right? This is purely for like just personal gratification and because we love these games and we love doing it.
Right. We do stamps.com commercials pro bono, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. We did a pro bono one. That's right. Yeah. So the Gauntlet superfans, I live for them. I love so much that they love the podcast, and their enthusiasm and energy for the podcast, like, is what keeps me motivated. Like, it really, really does. So, Patrick, who I've gamed with as well. Patrick's an awesome guy. He chose Swords Without Master again. We have another Swords Without Master choice here. He says playing a session with Epi himself was a blast, but my favorite game by far was running it for some folks who were completely new to role-playing. He said, just like Andy said, Andy Haig, who also chose it as his favorite game, it was so exciting to just watch as the creativity exploded from the players. And then Rocky Perez, who is fairly new to the podcast and to the community, but he seems like a really awesome guy. He's running like Dungeon World, I think, and Fiasco for like his like high school kids, which is like really, really cool. He chose Monsters and Magic. Dan, why don't you read what he had to say about Monsters and Magic?
So he says Monsters and Magic by Sarah Newton. He's enjoying it immensely. It gave new life to his old first edition D&D material and even some old Gloriantha stuff. There we go, Gloriantha again. Glorantha.
I know, Glorantha getting some praise here. Yeah, Glorantha.
It gives an old school vibe to modern role-playing, kind of like D&D First Edition meets Fate Core. Absolutely wonderful, and in terms of crunchiness, it's not oatmeal like Fate Core Accelerated, and not exactly Captain Crunch like Mathfinder/Pathfinder. It's more like Raisin Bran. I'm not entirely sure I follow all of that, but I will.
No, I totally get it. He says, in terms of its crunchiness, it's not like oatmeal or Captain Crunch. It's like Raisin Bran. It's in the middle, Dan.
All right.
Having middle.
It's in the middle. Yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah, I get where he's going with that. I don't know anything about Monsters and Magic. It sounds like it's my jam, but yeah,
I don't know anything about Captain Crunch, so that was my problem.
I'd have gone for Cocoa Krispies. They're much more enjoyable than Raisin Bran. Yeah.
True, but if you're talking about crunchiness, you may want to go with the cereal that has crunch in the name.
I guess
but
that's a good
Raisin Bran
point.
doesn't have crunch in the name. I meant for the middle one. For the middle one, I'd have gone with Cocoa Krispies, because who wants to eat Raisin Bran?
Sure, but I wasn't listening to you. I was just listening to
you. Everyone.
Okay, well, does anybody know anything about Monsters and Magic? It's unfamiliar to me completely.
Nope.
No idea. Never heard of it until I saw this right here on the document.
Well, hey, there we go. That's why
I only consume oatmeal.
It's true. We're oatmeal consumers over here, Rocky. Well, that's cool. I may have to go check it out, though, because it does sound like my jam, because I'm into fantasy stuff, especially rules light fantasy stuff. And then finally, Gauntlet superfan Eloy, who we play Apocalypse World play-by-post with. He chose He chose Apocalypse World. Rich, why don't you read his, since we have our, kind of connection with Eloy there?
Yeah, you bet. It's gonna make me feel a little weird, but I'll read it.
Oh, that's right. You're mentioned in it. Would you rather not read it since you're mentioned in it? I can read it. It's no big deal. Or Dan can read it.
Let's let Dan read it.
All right, Dan, you read it.
He says, I've been agonizing over this for a few days now. If I have to pick just one, it's going to be Apocalypse World 2nd Edition by Vincent Baker, of course. Likely influenced by the fact that we're playing in Richard Rogers' PvP, and that offers a unique opportunity to get inside the character's head, helped along by Rich's suggestion to write in first person. However, regardless of that...
Very good suggestion, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I hear good things about it. Regardless of that, the setting and situation are heavily embedded in the game itself. Scarcities plus particular character-specific situations encoded in the playbooks themselves, so that you immediately know who your character is, where they're coming from, and where they're going. Plus, the battle and road war moves look very interesting. It's only the second PBTA game that he's played, but I like how focused it is. DW feels less focused to me. It's giving me life.
He's wrong about that last point, but that's okay. That's okay.
And then he has an honorable mention that goes to Swords Without Master.
Awesome. Cool. The 2E thing is interesting. Rich, what do you think about, because I know you're running this 2E game and you've played it before, I gather. What do you think about all these extra moves in 2E? Because there's like a bunch of extra moves.
You're talking about the extra basic, like moves, the battle preview stuff.
There's like these, they're extra basic moves, like combat moves and other sorts of things. What are your thoughts on that?
I really love the reinterpretation of Cease by Force into things that make more sense.
Into something that makes goddamn sense.
Oh, yeah. And I love Sucker Someone. I like some of the cat and mouse moves, although I haven't seen it in play, so I can't really say that I love it because I haven't played it. But
okay,
I've just read it.
That's fair. Yeah,
but I've got another second ed Apocalypse World game that I'm running over Play by Post. We just finished up a pretty interesting road battle in a huge gladiatorial arena, and you whipped out some of the road moves there, and it plays pretty sweet. It's really fun.
Okay. All right. Cool. I guess it's kind of we'll wait and see. I guess
it's a little much.
It's new.
To be perfectly honest, like there's a bunch of those moves where I'm like, I'm really going to have to push it to actually get that in play, but it's there if I need it.
I'll be curious to see how it plays out. I mean, it's still in development, so it's kind of unfair.
I'd rather him
really
throw all of them out and see which is grabbing. Yeah. The only thing, like, my only real head scratcher on this one is lifestyle. Like, I don't get it. I don't really get it. Because you declare if you're going to do a lifestyle, but, like, what does that really mean? I don't know.
What are the lifestyles?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly, right? I'm not sure if I can give you the best answer. So the idea is that every session, and the assumption is that time has passed during the session, every session you pay to upkeep a lifestyle. You either pay 1 barter, or you pay 2 barter to live really well. And if you choose not to pay a barter, you tell the MC, yeah, I'm not going to upkeep my lifestyle, and then something bad's going to happen to you. But you can also work gigs, because the whole operator thing, there's no operator playbook now. And the operator's main thing was working gigs, which were, little jobs to get money. So I love that the operator aspect has been integrated into all the playbooks. Love that. I don't understand the literal economy of lifestyles and how that works yet. That's my head scratcher.
Okay, all right.
Loving the game, although, boy, the Battle Babe change. It went from Battle Babe to me was like the Jackie Chan character in first edition. Like, I'm not a total badass, but I'm going to survive. Like, I'm going to come out of this through luck and be cool. And now that they've changed, that the moves are changed, and you have the one move, which I guess anybody could take if they take a move for another playbook, but you're kind of amazing at all combat now as a Battle Babe, and so that was. I'll shush now, but I have lots of things.
No, it's great to hear. Yeah, no, I mean it's still in development. I'll be curious to see the final. I know Meg and Vincent are getting the final version of it ready here pretty soon for Kickstarter, but yeah, it's cool. I mean, I'm liking it so far. It kind of really struck me that there's a lot of basic moves.
There is. I miss the faceless. Vincent, if you're listening, please get us the faceless back.
Yeah, I was gonna make Build-A-Bear faceless, but until I realized it wasn't available.
Oh my goodness, that would turn my stomach.
Yeah, it would have been perfect.
Are they playtesting other limited edition playbooks? That's what the faceless was.
Everything that Vincent actually created is in. Everything that was made by someone else, he has not put in the playtest. So it's entirely possible that faceless will make it.
Yeah.
I just hope the Hoarder doesn't, personally.
You do want the Marmot, though.
Oh God, no, not the Marmot.
So
Nor do
to
I
be
want the
clear,
Space
that's
Marine Man.
literally a marmot.
It's a Marmot.
Oh man, how have I never played this?
Dan, it's a film noir Marmot too.
Yeah,
it like
oh my
investigates
god, that
mysteries.
ticks all of my boxes.
It really does. That's why I hid it from you whenever we were playing. Okay, I was like, that's not an option.
What could have been?
Okay, awesome. Okay, so we do the last co-host pick, which is mine. Can I get a drum roll, please? Thank you. So I had it down to 3 games. The Clay That Woke was one for the reasons that I mentioned at the top of the show, and then Cheat Your Own Adventure was another. They ended up being runners up. You know, I like all 3 of these games equally well this year, so the fact that I'm choosing one doesn't mean much, except that, you know, we've given The Clay That Woke and Cheat Your Own Adventure a lot of love in the past, and Cheat Your Own Adventure just last week, in fact. But I think my pick does, in fact, edge those 2 out just a little bit. And I'm going with Jason Morningstar's Night Witches as my favorite game of 2015. The physical book is so beautiful. It's laid out beautifully. The art is wonderful. No one does utility of space like Jason Morningstar does. Like, his games are so easy to digest and get to the table quickly. I love that about it. The cards, as we mentioned in a previous episode, the cards that come with it are a great addition to play. If you can play it with those cards, listeners, get those cards. Those are a really important part of it. And also, it just has like this really cool, you know, like historical lesson that it's teaching, right? Like, I didn't know about the Noctexan, right? Like, I didn't know about these Russian air women who did bombing raids over Germans. You know, I didn't know about that until Night Witches came out. And what I love is that you get to tell the stories of these women, and you get, you know, as best you can do in a role-playing game. I think he conveys the danger, the constant, like, drum of danger that they were in every night. I think he really, really sells very well the idea that these are women who were not even appreciated or wanted by their own command structure because they were women. All of that stuff comes out really great in the game, and the game is fun, you know? I love a game that makes me feel something, that teaches me a lesson, and is also exceptionally fun. We've played about 6 total sessions this year, and collectively they were the most fun I had this year. They were just so incredible. Dan and Kristen were involved in those sessions, so they might want to pipe in. But it's just so good. Like, the cycle of, like, okay, daytime stuff, nighttime stuff, daytime stuff, nighttime stuff is so good. The daytime, you're trying to rest. You're trying to get ready for the night mission. You are, you know, interacting with your comrades. You're putting up with the boys, you know, who are acting like pieces of shit. You're kind of living out their lives. You're writing letters to home. You know, you're doing all those things. You're getting to really, really experience what it was like for them, as best you can in a role-playing game, what it was like to experience that. And then at night, they get in their planes, and a lot of times they die. You know, and they don't make it back. And we lost a lot of characters in those 6 sessions. And each time, though, it was tremendous. You know, the mechanics of the game make sure that you remember that Soviet airwoman, that you told a story that felt true and satisfying. And it was so good. I just loved Night Witches. I'm just kind of rambling on at this point, but it was my favorite game. I think it's one of the best games that have been released in recent years, and it was definitely my favorite game this year. So, Night Witches. Is there anything else you want to say about Night Witches?
Kristen is giving the thumbs up.
Sounds like not. Kristen wanted to say something earlier, but
no, it's
gone
because
silent.
you've said everything perfectly. You know, it's all of that. It's the emotion, it's the art, it's the, you know, the tension, it's the incredible danger that becomes quite palpable for your characters. It's I particularly, and I've mentioned this before when we were playing it at the time in an earlier podcast, but the questions that get asked of your characters that yes, really sort of explore their background and why that is they're doing the things that they're doing. And I loved how my character, who started off as this sort of flighty, girly, you know, bubbly person, we lost characters after our first or second game, and she changed, and you know, and that's real life, you know, that people lose their friends, and they're changed, and they're different, and they see, and war makes everything different, and it was an incredible game.
Yeah, I really dug it. I mean, it was, you know, there were just so many great moments, and after we were done, I remember, it was the one game this year where after it was over, like we all just wanted to talk about it, like we just wanted to talk about the session and talk about what happened and keep talking about it, like before we started the next session. We enjoy all the games we play to a certain extent, but Night Witch has really, really stuck around in my memory and my feeling. And so, it gets my top spot this year. So, all right. Well, that is our show. So listeners, I wanted to close with Richie. So Richie, a cat from Australia who we played with a couple times, he did not give us a favorite game, but he did send us this, which I thought was a nice little capstone to the year here. He says, my favorite of 2015 isn't a single game at all, but gaming community, G+, his zine community and that sort of thing. He says, I've played more games with more people this year than ever before by a very large margin, and it's been some of the most satisfying gaming of my life. It's ironic that G+ seems to be threatening to take all this away from us. That's true. He says, but I'm sorry if you can't use my answer. Well, we're using it right now. He says, but this global community of gamers, including the Gauntlet, of playing together has definitely been my standout gaming experience of 2015. I couldn't have said it better myself. I feel that all the time, Richie, and I'm glad you're having an awesome year in gaming because we did too. So that's it, guys. This is our last show for the year, and we're not going to be back until January 15th. So we're going to be on hiatus until January 15th. In the meantime, I recommend everyone go join the G+ community. We're still going to be there. We're still going to be talking about games that we play, and we're still going to be doing all the things we do there. So go join that. Come play games with us. What do we have? Dan, we have something like approaching 30 games at this point on the, we're like approaching 30 games on the calendar right now, or soon to be on the calendar in total through January over on Gauntlet Hangouts. So go find us on Gauntlet Hangouts as well. And of course, we're on Twitter at Gauntlet RPG. Before we head out, I just want to say a big thank you to Rich and Dan. They are the editors of the show. They put in so much work, you guys, to make this show happen. I'm just the dumb idiot who gets up here and talks about games, right? They actually like do all the processing and all the editing and clipping out my ums and my false starts and all that stuff. We definitely,
I like how you followed that immediately with,
yeah. They do all that awesome stuff. They spend so much time on it. There have been so many times when like I chime in with one of them and like it's late at night and they're editing the freaking podcast. So Rich and Dan, thank you guys so much for Dan all year and Rich for coming on here later in the year. I'm looking forward to next year, and I hope you guys don't get tired of doing it. we want you to stay. So thanks, guys. That's all I've got, though. Kristen and Steve, thank you guys for being stalwart co-hosts.
Thanks for having me.
And Richard and Dan, thanks again. And listeners, thanks so much for tuning in. Okay, we'll see you in January.
Welcome to this special edition of the Gauntlet Podcast. My name is Jason, and I have a guest with me today. It's Becky Anderson. Hello, Jason. Now, Becky, this is kind of a special edition where we're going to talk about language and pronunciation. Yes, that's right. As I told you before you started the recording, in the Work with Lovecraft-esque, our game about being one character. One character. Yes, you all play one character, but it's a horror game based on Lovecraft, but without the nasty bits. Well, except the nasty bits we like. Yeah, all right. Yeah, we've actually covered that on the show previously, and it's a great game. It's got a lot of good buzz in the community now. Yes, but what we found was that Lovecraft in his narratives has some challenges in the pronunciation. Yeah, there are some pretty hard names in there, like Cthulhu and Yogurt. Yes, especially the Shotyo, and not to mention Nyolahoitep. Yeah, it's hard really, but fascinating. The only language on Earth that really compares to Lovecraft's invented mythos language when it comes to difficulty of pronunciation is we have found, me and my partner, Josh, or Mr. Fox, as he's known. Mr. Fox and I have discovered that the only language that truly compares in difficulty is Norwegian. Norwegian. That's one of the Scandinavian languages. Yes. Thing is that there has been rumors, Jason. There has been rumors that if you decipher, this is part of the Necronomicon that we couldn't put in the game out of fear of triggering something in people who are a bit susceptible. You have a hard time, Jason, comprehending that this is just fiction. We read in the Necronomicon in our research that if you learn to decipher Norwegian, you can unlock and unleash terrible forces. Are you talking about supplement or something? Is this in the game, or is it? No, this is very real, Jason. This is. Anyway, we've received a soundbite here, sort of a recording from a Norwegian game designer called. Well, you can listen for yourself. Ole Peder Giæver. Ole Peder Giæver. Yes, Jason. He's been sending that out to everyone, and he's a bit disturbed, the poor dear. We all try to take care of him. He is a dear, really, but and he had some. They have some fascinating cards and things in that other game of his, but he's been sending these out now to everyone, all podcasts, all game designers. Ole Peder Giæver. Ole Peder Giæver. All right, I think we'll stop that recording now. So and this it's his name, Josh. Sorry, Jason. Yeah, we all get confused sometimes. It's his name, right? But he's claiming it's a supplement for his other game, the Surreal. The Iters By. Iters B. Iters B. Bye. Okay, I think it's time to say bye. Anyway, thank you, Becky, for coming to our show. I hope we'll get a bit more focused for our next podcast. It'll be about Japanese games. Got a special guest there from gonna teach us how to speak Japanese. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. This has been The Gauntlet with me, Jason Cordova, or Cordova, as you would say if it was a Spanish pronunciation of the city. And with Becky Addison. Thank you for joining us, Becky. Thank you so much. And by the way, I have a Narnia game on Pelgrane Press Anthology coming out right these days. It's super fantastic. It covers sad things that happens after you leave your own fantasy world and have to relate to reality, really. Sounds something that's right up our alley, Becky. Thanks. Bye.